Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today on Monday are sponsored by Basant Motors. Ready to find your next vehicle? Visit Basant Motors today to experience the difference for yourself. The friendly team look forward to help you drive home in the next perfect vehicle for your needs and budget. Getting to your destination starts with us. I should be better with this. I wrote this thing. Learn more at BASANTmotors.com. That's Basant Motors. Thanks to Jazz and our friends at Basant Motors. A day earlier than usual, we welcome in TSN's Director of Scouting, Craig Button. Craig, how are you, sir?
I am great. Thanks for accommodating me, Ryan. Got a little bit of a travel day tomorrow, right during the scheduled slot. So I really appreciate you moving me around a little bit.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Craig, Saturday night in Vancouver, Canucks lose 3-2 to Minnesota in overtime. Results in this market, it doesn't really matter at this point. But the big storyline was the punch by Yakor Trenin. He tossed from the game, late punch on a defenseless Derek Forbort. They were fighting, and Forbort was defenseless at the end of it, and Trenin got in one last punch. I want to get your thoughts on the play, but also the overall job the Department of Player Safety does in the NHL. Because, of course, when stuff like this happens, every market yells and screams because there's no supplemental discipline, so every fan base is up in arms. What are your thoughts on the job they do as a whole?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think as a whole, they do a really good job. But I think like goaltender interference, there needs to be, I guess, just greater enforcement is what I would call it. Greater enforcement and a little bit. I know we use the term clarity when it comes to goaltender interference. Maybe I use the word clarity, but greater enforcement. Like you get into the blue, no goal. Like sorry, if you're in like the goaltender gets to move however he wants in that blue. Now, with respect to that play, and how many times do we hear about honor and code and rules of engagement? Jakub Trenin did not follow that, and I'm never going to suggest that a player is purposely going out and trying to do something. But in this case, to me, it's over the line, and to me, it deserved a suspension because you're sending a message not just to that player, you're sending a message to every other player. This will not be tolerated. This will not be accepted. So don't even think about doing it. I felt the same way about the Jalen Chatfield play on Connor McMichael. I mean, it's a leg whip. I have talked to half a dozen guys that made their living in the NHL fighting, and every single one of them is astounded that Chatfield didn't get suspended. So what happens next game? Well, Brandon Duhaime comes out and says we got to deal with it. So they create their own problems on a going forward basis. Like, just deal with it. Just deal with it and say, Jakub Trenin, you got one game or you got two games. Same thing with Jalen Chatfield. Carolina was playing for nothing. They didn't taking him out of the lineup wasn't going to hurt the Carolina Hurricanes, but it was going to send a message. And they had a chance to send a message. And I think it was wrong that they didn't suspend Jalen Chatfield. I think it was wrong that they didn't suspend Jakub Trenin. That is crossing the line. It's unacceptable. And to me, it merited a suspension.
Yep. Absolutely, Craig. 100% with you there. Hey, Craig, just 2 games left for the season for the Canucks. That's it. And there's going to be changes. And I want to start with Rick Tocchet. He has no contract. And the Canucks have now said they want to nip this in the bud. They don't want it to linger for weeks and months. So we could have an announcement this week, if he stays or goes. What do you do with Rick Tocchet, Craig? Obviously, he's in for a big raise. He's at 2.7. He won the Coach of the Year. Probably wants, something in the fours. Do you do it? Like, what's going on there?
Well, the cap's going up. I would imagine the cap would probably go up for coaches too. And I've said this about Rick before. Yeah. I think that Rick has really settled into being a good coach in the National Hockey League, a really good coach in the National Hockey League. You look at his first few, instances of being a head coach. You learn, you grow, and then you get better because of those experiences. And I think Rick has done all of that and more. I think that this year, with everything that he's had to deal with respect to the drama, and I use drama not in a a pejorative way, but just it was a fact. There was a lot of drama going along, injuries. I think you look at what he's done with the team. I think what he's done with individual players, he's been able to get the best out of them. I think the team, with everything that was going on, injuries and drama and everything else, sort of, I think he probably got the best out of this team that he possibly could. And that's a sign of a really, really good coach. And now I'll carry it forth, and I'm going to use Jim Rutherford's comments where he said, we're not a contender. Well, he's right. So if you're not a contender and your team is maxed out, well, then the onus is on management to get better players to make it a contender. The coach did what he had to do. Now, that being said, I think they have to find a way to address this situation. When job openings occur around the league, that gives coaches leverage. And certainly where Rick sees himself right now, where other people around the league with job openings see him, I think that spurs on a real serious and significant discussion. Now, whether that discussion leads to him staying in Vancouver or them parting ways, they have to deal with this ASAP. And I would suggest the quicker they do that, the better able they're going to be able to start moving forward for next year. Because without that situation settled one way or another, you're now dealing with uncertainty. And players don't want to deal with uncertainty. Potential players that may want to stay that you're talking to in terms of free agency, they want certainty. So where does it go from here? And I think that is the number one objective on the Vancouver Canucks management task list, is to address the coaching situation. And if it was up to me, I'd be trying to do everything I could to keep Rick talking in Vancouver.
Well, number two could be Tom Willander, and you and you've talked about Tom Willander a ton on this show. His season's over, and it looks like, Craig, that they're not close to a deal right now. I mean, there could be a fight over A bonuses. It doesn't look like it's in a good spot, but things can change with one phone call. You were a manager, you know that. But would it surprise you if Willander didn't sign and go back to Boston?
Yeah, well, I think this is my take on it. I think that a lot of players want to get that first year burned, and I think that that's probably where the contention is. I think that the Vancouver Canucks have 2 games left, right? And Tom Willander and his representatives are probably saying, you know what, we want to burn the first year on that entry-level contract. And the Vancouver Canucks are going, no, we don't want to do that. That's where I would see the issue right now. I don't think it would be on A bonuses. These players, I think the template gets pretty well set. And keep in mind, the Vancouver Canucks have Tommy Willander for another 2 years.
Yeah,
I think that Tommy has been a real strong player since the day he got drafted. I think it's just about burning that first year of an entry-level contract. So if they can't come to that, then they'll pick up the negotiations and get them ready for next year. And I don't think it hurts anybody, the Vancouver Canucks or Tom Willander, if he doesn't get into games this year or doesn't sign until the season is over. I don't think that'll have any negative bearing on anything with respect to the Vancouver Canucks and Tom Willander.
Craig, one last one, 1 minute or less. Ivan Demidov. Set to make his Montreal debut tonight after the hype train went through Toronto's airport and into Montreal. You had him number 1 in the top affiliated NHL prospects in February. What are the reasonable expectations for the remainder of this year on Demidov in Montreal?
And Ryan, I like the way you use the word reasonable expectations. So, this team right now, Montreal, is really moving along and humming along at a good pace. But Ivan has played in a really good league, and he's played against former NHL players, hard players. So I think he's ready to come into the NHL and help the Montreal Canadiens. They don't need him to come in and be a top-line player, but I think that Demidov knows that, okay, here's what I got to do. He had to find his way with Scott in the SHL. And I think that the same things will go on with the Montreal Canadiens, but he had some offensive creativity, offensive capabilities that the Montreal Canadiens can use. And I think he'll help them in that regard.
Outstanding, Craig.
Outstanding.
You help us every week. You're our top line center.
Number 1, Craig. With a bullet. Number 1.
What's the pay grade for number 1 centers? Hey, listen, everybody's looking for a number 2 center. Maybe I'll take the money for a number 2 center.
You'd be number 1. You're number 1, Craig, in our eyes.
Thanks so much, Craig. We'll talk to you
guys.
next week.
Have a great day. Yeah.
Thanks, Craig.